Hello, everybody. Great to see you. What are we talking about today? Today, we are talking about the best time for content. So, what does this mean? What are we talking about? When is the best time to post images? What's the best time to post text? What's the best time to send out a newsletter? What's the best time to put out a blog post? All of these things are very important. Knowing the best time to post will make a difference. But that's what I'm going to be addressing on today's episode of the BB&J Podcast. I'm your host, John Lent. Let's get into it. So, why does time of day matter for posting? Why can't you just post whenever and, hopefully it'll show up in people's feeds? Oh, well, I put on my newsletter Monday. Yeah, but what time Monday? Knowing the best time to post makes a difference because when you execute that content is going to get to people at the best time of day when they are most likely to engage with it. The algorithm's going to favor it the most. All of these things matter. It's not just what kind of content does my audience like, or when does my audience like to pull up their phones and see my stuff. The algorithms matter too. These social media algorithms, it's very nuanced because they want to give the people on the platform the best content, right? The best content for that specific individual. So fresher content that is on the up and up of engagement. These things are incredibly favorable for social media. So if you are, how do I put this? If you're thinking like, oh, well, I can just do 8 a.m. and be fine, you know what? You probably will. 8 a.m. is generally a pretty good time. But if you want to just take it to 11, go a little bit above and beyond. This posting at a specific time will make you stand out. It will make a difference. I think there's a famous example. If you are a mattress company or late night foods, right? The snacks kind of thing. You actually do want to be advertising and putting out content a little bit later. For mattresses, one of the, it's a great time slot, and is very specific. A great time to advertise is at night. That 2 a.m., 3 a.m. slot. You know why? Because who's watching TV, who's on their phones at 2, 3 a.m.? People who don't have the right mattress. People who can't go to sleep. So by targeting them at that specific time, they are making sure that their content gets to them. I think this is a case where it's very, very obvious that time of day matters for traditional marketing, for traditional content production. But it might not be as obvious on social media. Because if I'm putting out content, if I'm putting out ads at 10 p.m. and I'm selling something that people enjoy during the day, snow cones, for example. That's going to be less effective than having a commercial at, I think noon, 2 p.m., where they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so hot. Let me get a snow, that actually looks really good. Let me get a snow cone. We know that time of day matters on the television on these traditional forms of media. If you're standing on the street corner handing out flyers, do you want to be handing it out at 4 a.m.? Not unless you're getting people like getting off if you're trying to target people getting off the night shift, you know? If you're just trying to get a general audience to go to your restaurant, well, obviously you're doing it when the restaurant's open, and you're doing it during either the lull hours, try to fill it, or the peak hours, you know, because people are more likely to come in. These things are important. Doing this mindfully, taking the time to figure out what is the best time to put out this content will make a difference. It will reliably grow your audience. So if you're not doing it, if you're not at least considering what is my audience online, start doing that. Now, what is an easy way to how do I put this? What is an easy way to figure out when the best time is? Because you might be thinking like, okay, John, I believe you that, you know, it's important to get this posting at a specific time, but when do I post? You know, if you're traditionally doing like 8 a.m. and 11 a.m., for example, or 9 a.m. and 2 p.m., you might not be certain what is the best time. And, you know, don't get too overzealous, because if people have come to expect you to be posting at this specific time, changing that might cause problems, right? You want this work to work for you. So, but the thing is, there's an easy way to tell if people come to expect and tune in when it comes out at that specific time. And that's looking at engagement, looking at those metrics. If a post does well in terms of engagement, and that time slot specifically works well, stick with that time slot. You know, if you decide to make a post at 2 p.m. and that gets really good engagement, whenever you post at 2 p.m., that always gets good engagement. You know, the truth is in the numbers. So looking at metrics, looking at how that engagement works will make a difference. Now, the thing is, you need to be mindful of what metrics you're looking at. You know, having great reach, having great impressions, that's all well and fine. But what are you specifically really looking for? Are you looking for the amount of likes, or are you looking at the amount of clicks? Are you looking at the amount of shares? Are you looking at the amount of comments? You know, the thing that you want to grow, the thing that you want to focus on in terms of engagement is the thing you want to optimize for with this post timing when looking at those metrics. So it's not just a question of using engagement metrics. It's a question of using the right metrics. Because, I mean, like we do have this conversation with our clients sometimes. It's like there are, you know, certain vanity metrics, things that look good, things that are nice to have. But then there are those metrics that actually matter, the things that make the big difference. And that does vary by post type. That does vary by industry, you know? If you're doing a newsletter, you might be trying to optimize for the open rate. So you send it at the time that makes the most sense for the open rate. And even if that doesn't necessarily correlate to a click-through rate, if people are opening it, then they're to some degree reading it. Especially if you have a nice optimized newsletter. I can get into that later, I guess in a later podcast. I'm excited for the next one, though, I have to mention, because this is podcast episode 308, and episode 309 is, you'll see. It's something exciting. I'm excited about it, at least. but you know, know what you're trying to optimize for, not what you're trying to improve. Because general engagement, sure, that's fine. That if you're not sure what metric to focus on, that's a good place to start, right? But if you're trying to focus on a specific thing, if you're trying to get people to click a link, schedule an appointment, comment, whatever it is you're trying to do, make sure that the post timing is optimized for that specifically. Likes are fine, but you can't eat likes for dinner, If you're trying to make a sale, post at the time that makes the most sales. It's really that simple. Going into the last thing, you've learned why this matters. You've learned kind of like how to leverage those metrics. Now you may be asking yourself, where do I start? How do you take this information and act upon it? Well, let's see if I can answer that. Okay. Best time to start posting. That is something that you're going to have to figure out one way or another, right? So the easiest way is to take a look at your page, take a look at your posts, take a look at, your newsletter, take a look at the metrics. With your content, whatever it is, take a look at the metrics and see how the engagement, how the views, the specific metric you're looking at changes over time a day. And find those that time that consistently gets good engagement. You might have one situation where it's like, one day it's all the way up here with like tons of engagement, and the next day it's like 0. Versus the one that has consistently pretty good engagement. You're still best off going for the one that's consistently pretty good, because we're trying to ride that high of like, oh, well, maybe today it'll get big engagement. You want to be, you want that predictability. Something that I think my driving instructor told me, when I was all those years ago, when I was getting my driver's license, is regardless of the localized rules, regardless of whatever signs are up or whatever it is for time of day, the biggest thing that you want when you're on the road is to be predictable. The most dangerous thing you can be as a driver is being unpredictable. If you're speeding, you're speeding. If you're driving slowly, you're driving slowly. If you're predictable about that, then that's less of a risk. You still shouldn't speed. I don't want to get it twisted. This is in no way, shape, or form an endorsement of speeding. Follow the rules, stay safe, guys, because it's driving. It's a serious thing. But the most dangerous of those is someone who is speeding up and slowing down, because that person's unpredictable. So look at that predictable engagement. That's the safe thing. That's the least likely to get you, screwed over in terms of content. So look at your social media. Look at your engagement for the content you're putting out. Find the thing that consistently and reliably gets good engagement in terms of posting time. Then start shifting those posts. Start trying to, if you're in a situation where you have figured out, okay, this is the best time, this is a better time to post in terms of engagement, what's the next step? What's the first thing you can actually do to make a difference? Try to start posting then. If a post gets better engagement at a later time, then try to post a little bit later. See how that affects the engagement. If it reliably goes up, you can run these tests for like a month. then shift that post time. You know, because this is true for anything. Like, to get a little bit meta, this podcast used to be like an hour and a half each. I would just sit down in front of the microphone. I wasn't even recording it on video, and I just record for like hours back to back podcasts. But you know what actually got engagement? This like 15-minute podcast. The clips and all that stuff. So you need to figure out what people engage with, because regardless of whether or not you think, okay, this is the best time to post, I feel like this should be the best time to post. Just take a look at reality. Take a look at when people are engaging with your content. Great thing about social media is you can pull up all those metrics and start moving your post times. Don't necessarily start with a big thing. Start with the smaller posts, the ones that aren't as catastrophic if you change them, but just keep going at it. Keep at that continual process, because that's really the thing, right? This posting content, this finding the best time, is a continual process, and continuing to look at engagement, look at the best time to post, and adjusting as you go along is going to make it a lot less overwhelming and is going to make it a lot more effective. So that's kind of my parting words of wisdom. Hopefully they're considered, somewhat coherent. But that's about all I have for you today. I'd like to thank you so much for listening and or watching. As I said, I am very excited about next week's. That will be episode 309, and there is a certain 8675 related doozy that I associate it with. Won't get into it too much, but yeah, I definitely look forward to seeing you next week. As always, make sure to like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell if you're on YouTube. We really do appreciate it. If you have a question about something, make sure that you comment, because I do read the comments, and I do work to address them in future podcasts. So if there's something you're not certain about, as always, feel free to reach out. Would sincerely appreciate it. Okay. Signing off. Have a good one.